Welcome to the Life with People podcast. This podcast is about finding, building, rebuilding, and reimagining community. My hope is that these conversations encourage you to reach for connection and community wherever you find yourself. This episode started on a Thursday afternoon when I stopped by my friend Prudence Dancy's home. Basically, we were hanging out, and in the middle of our conversation, I was like, wait, Prudence, we really need to record this conversation for the podcast. And thankfully, maybe a little reluctantly, she agreed. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you. Prudence Dancy is a dear friend and a mentor of mine, and she has her own podcast called Pause with Prudence. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode. And as always, if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Feel free to DM me, email me, take our community survey, send up a flare, do whatever you got to do, but please reach out. Also, do me a favor and subscribe to the Life with People podcast. It helps other people find the show just like you. Okay, well, this is the most spontaneous episode of Life with People I've ever done. I stopped by my dear friend Prudence Dancy's house, and we started having a conversation about clear communication, and we were just talking through some scenarios in our own lives. And I was like, you know what? We should just record an episode because Prudence is a wealth of wisdom. And I wish I could take all of her wisdom gems and throw them around the world. So hopefully you feel that way as well by the time you're done listening to this little mini ad hoc spontaneous episode of Life with People. Anyway, Prudence, can you introduce yourself real quick?
Oh, thanks, Theresa. I'm not a spontaneous person, so this is Theresa being able to pull this out of me. But I'm glad to be with her, and I'm excited about her podcast and what she wants to do in it. I have been around for a really long time, and I've done loads of things. That right now I'm a founder and director of Renewed Living Ministries, which is an organization specifically designed for contemplative living and how to become more than do. And I'm excited to be a part of what Theresa wants to do. So thanks for inviting me, or thanks for stopping by. I think we will see. We will see at the end of this if I'm glad about it or not.
I hope you will be. Yeah. Prudence is a dear friend of mine, and she actually is the person who introduced myself and I don't know, dozens of our friends and community to the Enneagram. She is my local Enneagram expert and the person that I call when I need to understand myself better. So just what?
We're both ones.
And we're both ones. We're both type ones. We're a little different in the way that looks, but because I'm more extroverted than she is.
Yeah.
We talk about that sometimes. But anyway, Prudence, I just would love for you to share anything that comes up for you and talk on the topic of clear communication.
Okay. Well, as an Enneagram 1, I'm pretty straightforward and truthful about things, and truthful from my point of view. And that's what I've had to realize, is that communication with other people is very, very interesting, because there seems to be very little objective truth. Most of us have subjective truth because it filters through that part of our brain, that mental process in our brain that comes from all of our experiences. Everything we've ever experienced has developed our perceptions of things. And so how we perceive things is how we approach even how we communicate. And so that's one process, is just all of our experiences go into our brain and help us process. And the other one that's been very interesting to me, that I've been able to relate to even recently in an incident in my life, is that if someone is not clear, we have something in our brain that says we have to make sense of that. So if someone tells you something that's sort of half of the story and you think, oh, there's more to that story, what we end up doing is going ahead and making up the rest of the story for them. And we make that story up based on our own experiences. And so we usually come out on the other end of that with a perception that's maybe the opposite of the truth. It might not be true at all. And so we get to that point where we miscommunicate. And the next time we see that person, we've made up that story, maybe half of the other side of the story they told us the last time. And we approach them differently. And our communication then just gets totally screwed up.
You see that all the time. Like when a relationship or a friendship is deteriorating, often there's an inception point where there was a misunderstanding or a miscommunication or a half truth gets twisted And then we kind of run with that subconsciously or consciously.
Right.
And the next time we see them, we have feelings associated to that,
Right.
to the truth or the non-truth. I don't know, like if that makes
Yeah.
sense,
We've
but
made up that story, and as a result, that story gives us the feeling about it.
sure, sure.
I think I was telling you, and what really inspired this is that in one of the jobs that I have, I felt like the person didn't know how to use me anymore, and maybe we're trying to get rid of me in the job. But in reality, they were not knowing how to use me, but were looking for places to use me. But because they didn't express that, when it was a feeling that I had, and so I just made up a big long story about the fact that, oh, I just need to leave because they don't want me here and all those kind of things. And that was a story that I had made up.
Hmm.
And I found out just recently that that was really not the truth. And so that caused me probably a few months of feelings that I shouldn't have had to have
Sure. And you,
because of that.
yeah. And the thing you said to me, which I thought was so insightful, is you said their question of how do I use her? How do I use her was speaking louder than their desire. I want you on my team. I want you on my team. And so what you were hearing is they don't know how to use me. I've lost my usefulness. But what they were saying is I'm not sure how to use you, but I really want you here and I value you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
like they're in their own leadership conundrum, right? Where they're trying to figure out how do I lead you? How do I lead Prudence? And you're over there going like you're in your own conundrum of well, how do I spend my time the most effectively? Where's my place of greatest impact and usefulness, right? And as a type
Right.
one, we can relate
We
on
go
that.
for it.
Like,
We go for
yeah,
it. Well, we do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
what is the cause I'm to take
Yeah.
up and what is
Yeah.
this purposeful thing that I'm doing in this
Yeah.
season? I mean, we can all relate to that. And even my recent episode where I talked with my grandma, we're talking about conflict and all of a sudden she goes, oh, like you can never understand fully what someone is thinking, where they're coming from, because you don't know their past experiences. You don't know what feelings they have in any given situation, even if you've known them for decades. Like you just can never fully know. It even reminds me of, is it in Corinthians where it's like, who can know the
The
mind of
mind.
a man? Like only the spirit knows kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And it's like really, we really cannot know or fully understand
Mm-hmm.
where another person is coming from. Yet it's almost like a survival mechanism. Our body and our brains and we really are, we're trying to fill the gaps because we have to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way we can order and move forward in our own lives
Mm-hmm.
by making sense of something, right? But that
Right.
just, yeah, sometimes it
Right.
just gets us into trouble a little
Right.
bit.
And so, actually, to make what I call proactive, clear communication, it's really important for us to create what might be called an inner subjective truth, where the two parties sort of come together and agree on what really happened. And so that means that it's really would be good because I probably need to even admit to this person that I've made up a story about them. And so, in doing that, we can come to what is really true,
Hmm.
and I can come to what they were really thinking and what they weren't. Because truth is determined, like I said, there's very little objective truth, and most of our truths are subjective as we come together. And so when we come together, it's really important for us to design that place where, they say that 80% of the conflict, I don't know if you've heard this before, but 80% of the conflict and confusion in our life comes from the mush. They call it mush in
Okay.
communication. And the mush is that story that we've told ourselves, and we're not sure that's really the truth. And what is truth? And of
Mm-hmm.
course, we know that as followers of Jesus, we know that the truth for Theresa and I are in God.
That's right.
But basically, truth in relationships, just one on one relationships, can be really co created
Hmm.
by saying, hey, this is true of me, what's true of you, and finding out that, and then working with those two truths, that
Mm-hmm.
those two subjective truths that come together can sort of make your
Mm-hmm.
objective truth for that moment. You know
Sure,
what I
sure.
mean?
Yeah.
You're bringing two perspectives, you're bringing two ideas together, and in doing that, you're creating the truth of your relationship, is what
Mm-hmm.
it is.
Mm. And I mean, you see that when there is miscommunication and two people actually do the work
Mhm.
of being vulnerable
Mhm.
and saying, hey, like, this is where I'm coming from.
This is a story I made up
This is,
about it.
yeah, or this is the story I made. I'm like, I feel like you don't like me right now, kind of thing. Like,
Right.
and it's like, but when you're able to do that, like most of the time, and especially in a conflict situation with a friend or a relationship, you come out the other side feeling closer,
Hmm.
feeling like you've come through
And
something
that's because
and
you've
having,
really developed a truth between the
Mhm.
two of you. So it might not be true again with another person in the
Sure.
same way, but the truth between the two of you is what is called the, interconnected truth, interrelational truth
Hmm.
that you come up with.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's so
Hmm.
good. So what would you say if you find yourself in that moment where you're like, man, I think I've made up a story. Like I must have made up a story. What would you say is a way that you can approach that person?
Well, I think you just said it. I think, of course, I'm straightforward and I'm honest about whatever. So I would say, you know what? I think I've made up a story about us, or I think I've made up a story about what's going on between the two of us.
Hmm.
Or what I think I've made up a story about what you really meant when you said that, because I didn't ask you what you meant.
Hmm.
And I should have, I
Hmm.
should have said, can you unwrap that or
Hmm.
unpack that for me better?
Hmm.
Uh, so I think it's just admitting that, hey, I think I've made up a story. Can you clarify
Hmm.
for me? I just think that's a good deal. Yeah.
Well, and what I hear from you is you're not coming in with statements, you're coming in with questions,
Yeah, right,
right? You're
right.
not like,
This is
hey,
what I heard from you that you must have meant or whatever. But no, hey, you know what? I'm not sure I got it right what we were
Mhm.
talking about last time because I left here and had to make up a story of my own. So hey, can you clarify for me what
Yeah,
we were talking about?
right,
Yeah.
right. Is there ever a time when you think it wouldn't be worth doing that?
Well, I think so. I think I don't know. It shouldn't
I know it's
be.
kind of a hard question. Sorry,
Should
that
I
was a
say
curveball question.
should I say it shouldn't be, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that there is. And I think timing is the key
Hmm.
because it's how badly you want that relationship to have a clear communication between the two.
Hmm.
And so I think it's a matter of trust. Do you really want to continue to build that relationship? Because sometimes relationships go astray because the stories just can't get straightened out.
Hmm.
And that's about trust to me. So I would say yes and no. I don't know exactly how to answer that
Yeah,
part,
I
but yeah.
kind of a
But
vague
no, that's
question.
great. No.
Um, yeah. What do you think the role of self-awareness plays in clear communication?
Well, self-awareness is just key. Like I said, I recognized and it when I got into the self-awareness issues and being able to not only understand myself, but be able to manage myself. That's the second part of self-awareness, or
Mm.
even the second part of clear communication. Because it's one thing to say, "Hey, Teresa, I'm straightforward, so if you don't like what I have to say, too bad." That's not the way to approach it. Either you accept me that way or you don't.
Hmm.
That's not the way to approach it.
Sure.
So it's like knowing I'm so straightforward, I then should take it upon myself to say, well, how straightforward is Teresa? Could she take it the way I'm going to say it? Should I say it in a different way because she's a different personality? Because you are a one like I am, I figure you can take my stuff.
Sure.
But basically, I really think that self-management means you've got to know your audience, you've got to know who it is you're talking to,
Hmm.
and then in that case, self-management is as important as self-awareness. Well, self-awareness has to come first
Right.
because you can't manage what you don't know.
Sure.
So it's a management after that.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, it's so interesting. You can't talk to a 5-year-old the same way you're going to talk to your elder or
Yeah.
to your boss
Yeah.
or to a friend. Like
Right.
those
Yeah.
are all different conversations, right? And
And self-awareness is not about just your own self. It has to have the other person in it
right.
because you can't be self-aware unless you know how you come across to other people.
Sure.
Or you can't be self-aware unless you know that there's a right way to respond to an elder, to a child, to a what your boss, to whatever. There's
Hmm.
just different ways.
Hmm.
And that's where this proactive, clear communication comes in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to me about now I'm just gonna bring everyone into conversations we've had in the past, I guess. Talk to me about the difference between self-knowledge and self-awareness.
Well, self-knowledge is knowing what you actually are. Like, to know self-knowledge is knowing that I'm a one and knowing that I'm straightforward and knowing that I like the truth and all of those things. And so it's knowing about it. But self-awareness is when you are able to, it sort of has the self-management piece in it, but when you're able to take who you are and say, what's it like to live on the other side of me? And so, what's it like to live on the other side of me? Oh, that scares me to death sometimes.
Sure.
I think, my poor friends, what are they thinking? To live on the other side of me. But it is an awareness, and you don't condemn yourself for it. You know you are who you are, but it allows you to temper yourself and to be and to see yourself. And then you watch body language as you say certain things. You may have come out straightforward with somebody, but you look at them and you watch their body language and think, oh my Lance, that didn't go over very well. It's because of the way I said it or the way I worded it or whatever. Because I have a lot of, I'll tell you my language, my truthful language is you should, you could, you must. I have all those very commanding words in my language. Well, that's fine for me. If you were to tell me I should do something, well, then I don't think, oh, she's commanding me. But
Sure.
to some people, that's a command, and that's just being really intrusive in communication. So I have to learn what that is and who's the person in front of me and all of that. So
What would you say to someone who has the opposite tendency? Like your tendency, and I think I lean this way as well, is like, okay, I'm a seeker of truth. I want to get to the bottom of it. And I'm going to ask all the questions, or I'm going to be as direct as possible. But I also see, like, I have a pretty strong nine wing. So I also see this side of me that wants to be very diplomatic and sometimes like not say the hard thing. Right. So what would you say to someone whose their tendency isn't to be harsh in their communication? I'm not saying you're being harsh, but I'm saying like too truthful. But if their Achilles heel isn't to be too confrontive, but their Achilles heel is to not actually be honest with themselves and then honest with the person they're talking to.
Well, now this is my tendency, and I'm not sure I'm going to relate it only to one, but I'm a teller rather than an asker, and I've had to learn a lot and continue to learn. I haven't stopped on this, Teresa. This is like, whoa, I'm not an expert on this, but I've had to learn to be able to ask more questions and try to ask gentle questions with a person that can't take it so directly.
Sure.
But again, I think it's a matter of not telling people about it, but trying to get the truth from them or what it is that they're really feeling on the inside. And I find that people, oftentimes, however, people that are not able to express themselves in that way, they don't know how they feel. So if you can help them to get in touch with their feelings, that's really good. In fact, I think that's good at every level.
Sure. So a lot of times the lack of being able to communicate is a lack of knowing how you're feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, and I have that too. I've been in conversation where I'm like, you know what? I know I have feelings. Like I actually can feel the feelings, but I don't have words for the feelings
Yeah,
yet.
well,
So I've had to tell people that. I'm like, I know I have thoughts and I actually can feel my thoughts right now, but there is no language for them yet. And so I've had to learn how to say that to people sometimes. Like, this is so deep for me that I don't have the words quite yet. Can we circle back? Probably tomorrow I can give you like a couple sentences on what I'm really feeling. Like, but right now in this moment, I'm just not sure and I'm feeling things and I don't know how you should receive me right now, actually. Like,
Well, people in your audience might identify with this because I call myself a 2-week processor.
okay.
Because basically, when something happens to me, I go immediately to my head. And that's where I make up stories. That's when I'm making up stories because I'm protecting my feelings because I don't.
Interesting.
And making up a story sometimes helps you to protect your feelings. But in 2 weeks, I'm going to know what I feel. Yeah, I don't know why, but for me, it takes me a couple weeks. And when people say to me, how do you feel about that? I say, ask me in a couple weeks and I'll really be able to tell you.
I might be crying when I tell you, but
But at any rate, so processing is different for everybody.
sure.
But I think it's important for us to know that we have those two mental processes that are in us that comes from our experiences and comes from the fact we need to make sense. of something.
Mhm.
So when you need to make sense of something and you've got your experiences, just know that's the way you're processing whatever's happening between you and your friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening with them too.
Yeah, for sure.
So-
And there's a whole other side of the equation,
Yeah.
right? You're only really getting 50% of it.
Yeah.
The part that you get to carry,
Yeah.
right?
And in some ways, if you started a conversation by saying, hey, you know what? I know you've got your experiences with this, and I know that you have to make sense of this. I have my experiences and I have to make sense of this. What was your story that you told yourself? This is the story I told myself. You know, it might be a good,
Sure.
it might be a good starter. I'm not sure.
That's so good. Again, I love that it's question based
Yeah.
and curiosity based. I think it's so easy to come with assumptions and accusations and statements rather than curiosity and questions.
Mhm.
And I think there's something I've really had to work through and learn. If my desire is connecting with the person, if my desire is connection,
Mhm.
then I'm coming at this with questions and curiosity.
Yeah.
Because my desire isn't to be right necessarily. Well, half the time I think I'm right, right?
Right.
Classic.
That does.
Classic. But more than being right, my desire is connection.
Yeah.
And so
to have connection, you have to have clear and proactive communication. That's the key. It's got to be clear and it's got to be proactive. You got to work at it. You got to make it happen. Yeah.
Doesn't just happen.
And that's how you connect with people.
That's so good. I even think there is an element of when you're first becoming friends with somebody or in a new relationship or something, it's always surprising to me because you have those moments and it shouldn't be surprising, but you have those moments where it's like, oh, all right, I don't know you that well yet. I want to know you well, but I don't know you that well yet. And I don't know how you respond in certain situations. I don't know how you communicate, and we're learning each other. And I think it's a beautiful thing when people can stay in the ring and work through that and get to know each other.
And I think what keeps us in the ring is not believing our own story so much.
Yeah.
When I realize I'm telling myself a story to fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And so the next time you see me moving into, I think somebody's feeling this way, just remind me, Theresa, that I'm telling myself my own story because I need to keep reminding myself of that. Is that your story or is that the real story?
Right. Or is that the real story? Yeah. Well, and we talked about this earlier. This will be our last thing. But earlier we talked about how sometimes when you're healing from something, you kind of have to make up a story in order to move forward. And I was telling you, my type 1 truthful integrous side doesn't want to make up a lie. I don't want to make up just a story that makes me feel better. I'm like, well, I don't want to just feel better so I can move beyond this. Give me the horrible, awful truth of it.
Right.
And like, that's not necessarily helpful either,
No.
right? And so like, there is this weird, anyway.
But oftentimes you'll find it's not as horrible as you thought either.
True.
So,
yeah.
But you and I would want to tell ourselves the horrible story because we can take it, it's that kind of thing. But
Sure.
no, it's not as bad as it seems.
Give me the hardest scenario. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, Prudence, this has been really delightful.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad that I stopped by your house.
Your spontaneous nature that I was like, no, I don't want to do anything spontaneous, but thank you for making me do it.
Of course.
Pulling me out of my introvert oneness. And thank you for doing that.
Let me pull you into my extroverted oneness.
That's right.
That has found her 7 today. All the Enneagram talk.
Yeah.
If you want to know more about the Enneagram, you can reach out to Prudence. She has a really cool podcast called Pause with Prudence and has a website also called Pause with Prudence. And you can submit questions on that website. Her podcast is really great. And I'm going to link it in the show notes. And I have a sneaky suspicion I'll be able to get Prudence to do some more spontaneous episodes with me in the future. So thanks for tuning in, guys. Let us know what you think and share it with your buddies. Okay, bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Life with People podcast. Again, if you would like to have more information about Prudence and what she does with Renewed Living Ministries or with the Pause with Prudence podcast, you can check out the show notes. We'll have all the links there for you. I want to encourage you to go to her podcast website and submit a question. She really takes those questions and she crafts her podcasting around felt needs and questions. So, yeah. Reach out to her. And again, Prudence, huge shout out to you. Thank you for being spontaneous with me and being the funnest part of that day. It was so fun, such a joy. I loved being with you and I can't wait to be with all of you next time on the Life with People podcast.